And we are back with the third segment of the GSMC Basketball Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. And in this third segment, we are going to be looking at the Timberwolves matching up against the Kings in yesterday's game. And we're going to go ahead and dive right into this. So, this was the only close game coming in from yesterday. I originally picked the Kings to end up winning in this game. I was wrong. But barely, because they ended up losing by only 2 points. Again, it was the closest game, but now they make me look bad. They made me look bad, and they made me look like I don't know my basketball, and I don't know the best teams in the NBA. I don't like that. I don't like how they made me look bad. I fully admit that I am a little bit salty at the fact that the Kings ended up losing in this really, really close game, but I will say I did not expect the Timberwolves to play as well as they did. And mainly, not even the Timberwolves, mainly Julius Randle. So we'll focus on the Timberwolves first. Now, even though I know we have the Kings loaded up right here, and I know that they're playing the Clippers in this matchup, but hindsight's 2020. Don't pick me, don't pick me for picking that. It's just because it was DeMar's debut as a Sacramento King, and that was why I picked this image, because it had DeMar DeRozan in it. And the Timberwolves, Anthony Edwards ended the game with 32 points, 7 rebounds, 4 assists, along with a steal. Very solid performance. He did shoot 10 for 24 from the field and 5 for 15 from 3. The shooting from 3 is not ideal, but again, the 32 points is more than ideal, especially coming in from your best player. Now, Anthony Edwards and Julius Randle, they were really the only positive things that this team really had on offense. And Julius Randle, he ended up being the leading scorer for this game, ended with 33 points, 13 for 17 from the field. Much better game in this matchup than it was previously. Ended with 5 rebounds and 4 assists as well. I don't really think the Kings have that dominant of a rim protector as the Lakers did in that matchup, which is why Julius Randle ended up prevailing and ended up playing really, really well in this game. And 33 points is impressive no matter who it is, and the shooting as well is also rather impressive. He also shot 5 for 6 from 3, which again, very impressive. And aside from those two scoring 30, the Timberwolves didn't really have anything else going for them on offense. Naz Reid ended the game with 19 points, yes, 6 for 10 from the field, 4 for 7 from 3. But aside from that, nobody else on the Timberwolves ended up scoring in double figures. And they only played 5 other players aside from those players. So the rotation was rather thin for the Timberwolves. They only ended up substituting 3 players in the matchup, as opposed to using the entirety of their bench, which is a little bit shocking, but at the end of the day, their rotations are solid enough that they're able to do so, and they're able to work with a lineup like that. So maybe that's going to be how we're going to see the Timberwolves play throughout the rest of the season. DiVincenzo, 1 for 6 from 3, 4 for 10 from the field with only 9 points. Not very ideal, but again, a win is a win, so it doesn't necessarily matter in hindsight. However, I do expect DiVincenzo to shoot the ball just a little bit better than what he did in this previous matchup. Mike Conley also did not play well, 2 for 9 from the field, 6 points, 2 for 7 from 3. Jaden McDaniels also did not play well on the offensive side of the ball, 2 for 9 from the field, 0 for 4 from 3 with only 6 points again. And Rudy Gobert only took 2 shots. Wait, my bad. Only took 2 layups. So really, again, this matchup essentially they ended up losing to 2 players. The Kings. They ended up losing to 2 players. Meanwhile, the Kings and their roster overall was rather solid. The starters played a hefty amount of minutes in this matchup, but overall, the overall team performance coming in from the Kings was better. It's just they could not prevail. And let me just go ahead and look at the box scores a little bit more intensely. All right. So Keegan Murray, 23 points, 11 rebounds. Very, very solid performance. Was not the leading scorer. He did shoot 8 for 17, 5 for 10 from 3, which is very, very solid. And DeMar DeRozan ended up being the main scorer for the Kings with 43 points. Not 43 points, Jesus Christ. 26 points in 43 minutes, 8 rebounds, 2 assists, and 7 for 18 from the field, 0 for 2 from 3, 12 for 14 from the line. Sabonis also played pretty well in this game, 24 points, 8 for 13 from the field, 3 of 4 from 3, and ended with 8 rebounds. I thought he was going to get more assists than he did in this game. He only got 1, but regardless, De'Aaron Fox more than carried in the category for assists. De'Aaron ended the game with 15 points and 11 assists, a pretty solid double-double coming in from him. His field goal percentage, however, wasn't really all that impressive. 6 for 14 from the field and only 1 more point to show from it. And, overall, the Kings had 5 players in double figures, yet they were still able to lose to the Timberwolves. Why is that? The answer is the lack of three-pointers. I said that this was going to be an issue with the Kings. The fact that the 3 best players are inside the arc players. They're players that thrive inside the arc. If you are a team that doesn't shoot the 3 or is reluctant to shoot the 3, then more often than not, you are going to lose in the matchups against teams, even when teams don't really play all that well. The Timberwolves ended up going 20 for 50 from 3, which is 40%, compared to the Kings, who only took about half of the, not exactly half of the three-pointers, and only made about half of the three-pointers that the Timberwolves ended up making. The Kings shot 11 for 29 from 3, and you can't win it's difficult to win a game when one team makes 11 three-pointers compared to a team making 20 three-pointers. That's just really, really difficult to win, despite the fact that they shot pretty well from 3. They just didn't take enough threes. And that ultimately caused them to lose the game in the end. That was the deciding factor, just based off of the box scores alone. And you can't afford to do that. You have to be a three-point shooting team. In fact, the only player that ended up taking a hefty amount of three-pointers in this matchup was Keegan Murray. He ended up taking 10 three-pointers for the Kings. Nobody on the Kings ended up taking more than 4, or ended up making more than 4, which is a problem. That is a serious problem for the Kings, and it's probably going to bite them for the rest of this regular season. The fact that they are not a dominant three-point shooting team. Scoring mid-ranges and shooting mid-ranges is not going to have you win these games. I understand Kevin Durant can do that, and Kevin Durant has won several games relying on the mid-range shot. But again, that's Kevin Durant. He does that at a rate that no one else has ever been able to see most of the time in these games. Not to mention he's also surrounded by a hefty amount of three-point shooters that balance out his mid-range attempts. Having 3 key players, all very, very good at shooting mid-ranges, is not, and taking 2-point shots, it's not ideal in this league anymore. And look at the field goal percentage and what DeMar DeRozan ended up shooting from inside the arc. He went 7 for 18 from inside the arc. And you can argue that if he didn't make 12 free throws in this matchup, he would have had significantly less than 26 points. And it's something that you just can't afford in this league anymore. You have to adapt. You have to be a three-point shooting team. And the fact that the Kings aren't going to be a three-point shooting team, it's going to be much more difficult to win these games. And teams are going to be able to make comebacks against them if they're on a hot shooting streak. This is just something that's This was a problem with the Lakers last year, how they were reluctant to take a lot of three-pointers, and they ended up losing a lot of games because of the lack of three-point shots. It's you can't have that. And again, the Timberwolves as a team, well, not as a team, but as individuals, they didn't really shoot the ball all that fantastic, aside from Julius Randle. But from 3, they were a lot more deadly. And they took a lot of players, they took a lot more three-point attempts than the entirety of the Kings roster. You have, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 players, actually 7 players attempting to take at least 4 three-pointers in this game. You have 7 players attempting at the very least 4 three-pointers compared to the Kings, where they only had two players attempting 4 3-pointers. That's not, or 3, excuse me. That's not an ideal offensive situation to want to be in. And that was a big reason why the Timberwolves ended up prevailing in this game, despite the fact that they only had major offensive production coming in from 2 players. That 3-point shooting ended up killing them. And it was like, again, this was a very close game. So if the Kings ended up taking just a little bit more 3-pointers, they probably would have ended up prevailing this game. But alas, that's not what happened, and they made me look bad. So I'm a little bit salty on that. A little bit salty on the fact that I picked wrong and they made me look bad, but I should have known that the Timberwolves were going to end up prevailing in this game. But you live and you learn, and hindsight is 20/20. So aside from that game, there's one more game that we have to review, and that is the Boston Celtics matching up against the Washington Wizards. Again, this one is going to be a review that's probably going to be a little bit quicker than the rest of the reviews because this is sort of something that we expected. So I'll be right back after this short break. Be sure to stay tuned.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.